Hold on. It's spinning wheel here.
Says live for me.
It does?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Hmm. What the heck? Let's see. Are we live? Oh yeah, we are. Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, it's I'm getting the spinning wheel here, but I guess we are. It's okay. That's not good that it says go live, but it doesn't say that we're live. All right. Well, hello, Aiden Bazzetti. Thank you so much for joining the Carousel podcast again. Everybody, we are on a new platform because Restream has completely shut down and is not working correctly. So screw Restream. So now we're back on StreamYard. And we're here today with Aiden Bazzetti, who is, I think, the chief of something called the Bull Moose Project. But there's also the Bull Moose Institute. So maybe we can start. What is the difference between the Bull Moose Institute and the Bull Moose Project?
Yeah. So from a legal distinction, right? They're separate entities. The Bull Moose Project was the original incarnation of what we were trying to do, which is more of an explicit advocacy for America First principles, legislation, and elected officials. And then the Bull Moose Institute is something new that we've spun up, really to build on the intellectual foundation of where we think the movement is going to go in the next few years. We really want to double down on hosting events, getting people together, because the network and the patronage networks are everything in this movement, especially if we want to continue to grow in the future. And then also develop more educational resources. So when we do meet with elected officials, especially here in DC, we're able to give them the specific things that we want to change, and not just a blanket, yes or no, thumb up or thumb down answer on a specific piece of legislation.
Right. So, how do these? Before we get into what Bull Moose is and everything, and we'll talk about antitrust and obviously Teddy Roosevelt and all that. But why do they do it this way? I'm learning a lot about the DC nonprofit NGO complex now, both from my, we run a branding and content agency that works in this sphere, and also just talking to more people like you and understanding this whole world. Why do you see this so often where it's like there's the institute and then there's the initiative and then like why does that happen?
It happens, I think, for two main reasons. One, the way the system is set up is kind of weird. So the 501c3 organizations, these tax exempt groups, they have lobbying limits. So you can only lobby a specific amount, and you pay taxes on it, like, this weird rule. The 501c4 organization is, it's a social welfare, I say the quote, social welfare organization. And those don't really have those kinds of limits. So basically you have this setup where it's usually someone set up the 501c3 first, they're tax deductible, they have support from donors and grant making groups, etc. And they kind of build this intellectual brand and backing and materials. And then when they're kind of more set up, they set up the C4, this advocacy organization that is able to take the research that the C3 produces and actually push and pressure people to put it into action. There's a couple different tactical ways it works, but that's really why it's set up. It's just the weird setup of the tax code, and what you're able to do with your tax exempt status versus not.
And if you give to a C4, you don't get a tax break. Is that right?
Yep.
I see. So what's the point of a C4 at all? Like, why not? What does it give you?
If you have a donor whose goal is to influence a specific piece of legislation, or a member, or organize people, that's more political, they would give to a C4. Like, these are people that don't necessarily care about a tax deduction explicitly, right. And they have a more I wouldn't say necessarily political goal or even ideological goal, but like they have something specific that they want done, and the C4 is the best vehicle for that, and that's why they give, not for the tax deduction.
Right. But why not just have it be like what does being a C4 do for the organization? Why not just be a company? Why not just be like an LLC?
The lobbying.
Oh.
Yeah. And
I see. So
the C4s are allowed to give to super PACs. They're allowed to like you can register people on partisan basis through the C4 to vote, which you can't do on the C3. The C3 has to be like fully nonpartisan. You just register whoever shows up. The C4 can be a lot more targeted. So they have like they have specific benefits, and there's a, without like getting too niche, there's a 527 organization which are expressly political. The C4 is, but those donate, like the 527s, those are the political action committees, these weird like niche groups. All of their donors are public. The C4 donors are private, the same as the C3. So as a vehicle, a 501c4 has a lot more flexibility as a vehicle for influencing pieces of legislation, for funding other groups, for carrying out partisan or pseudo-partisan activities on a limited basis. That's why a lot of people end up going with those. For the project on our side, the reason why we started the C4 first was because it's really easy. I mean, you create a company, like you incorporate, and then you sign a document to the IRS that says, I'm going to operate as a 501c4 organization. And then, you wash your hands and you're good to go. The tax deduction costs upwards of $20,000 to $30,000 at least.
Oh, wow.
And you're waiting for years.
Damn, that's what a C3 costs. It costs $20,000 to $30,000 to make a 501c3.
It depends on your lawyer. Some people get lucky and they have a lawyer friend who does it pro bono. But these firms, I mean, it gets expensive to make one. So you have to have that money basically guaranteed. And then you're on the list for at least 12 to 18 months before you get approved.
Wow.
So it is a whole process.
Wow. I didn't realize that a C3 was that expensive. Yeah. Okay. So, all right. So Bull Moose Project, not initiative. I like the two taglines you have for each, by the way. One is relentlessly advocating for a. Sorry, I'm back. What, dude? Did it just die?
Yeah, it did.
The whole stream just died?
No, we're still live. You disappeared for like 10 seconds.
What in the world is going on here? No, I'm back. Bulkington says I dropped. Yeah, sorry, dude. Restream is the real problem here.
It's a censorship regime, man.
It really is.
Coming after you.
They're finding me. No, so I think it was because I insulted American Express. I said I canceled my American Express card, and suddenly all my stuff stopped working because they came after me. No, but okay. The two great taglines for the Bull Moose Project: it's relentlessly advocating for a dominant American future. Mm-hmm. And then what's the tag for the Bull Moose? The other thing?
It's conservatism with the courage to govern.
Yeah, conservatism with the courage to govern. So, okay, let's just start. Why Bull Moose? I know that was Teddy Roosevelt's name. So why is that our leader? And like, what is your guys' platform?
Yeah, so the first thing, Bull Moose, right? I mean, everybody knows it's Theodore Roosevelt, very much Theodore Roosevelt inspired. We actually got some flack for it on both the right and left because the progressives love to claim him, right? Because the Bull Moose Party, the official name was the Progressive Party.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was. And so now I would say progressive means something very, very different now than it did 112 years ago, 114 years ago. But the conservatives also would be like, why Bull Moose? He cost Republicans the presidential election, and we got the worst president in history. Fair point. Like I can't really contest that. We chose Bull Moose not necessarily only because of a policy platform proposed.
Wait, who's the worst president in history in this thing that you just said?
Wilson.
Okay, so why is why is Wilson the worst president in history?
Because he was the one that like really mainlined this international liberal order post World War One.
Is that true? I literally did not even know this.
You
find something new every day. So okay, so this is like people saying Wilson was the bad guy. So, okay, can you just explain that a little bit? Like, why was Wilson? Because, everybody says it's FDR was the communist or whoever, but I didn't realize that Wilson was recognized in that way. Sorry, that's probably really ignorant of me. But
no,
why is he the guy?
A couple of things. I mean, the Federal Reserve came under him, which a lot of people do not like the Federal Reserve on the right wing. He started up the League of Nations, so this post World War I settlement. They wanted to create an international organization to prevent war and settle disputes, and it failed pretty miserably. And there's also like niche arguments that America messed up the post World War I negotiations. I'm not the expert on this, but I have heard people criticize, like the French and the British wanted to punish Germany to the fullest extent. And we see this in the records of the peace conference, and which some people say set the stage for the next one. I wouldn't really honestly know the specifics of those, but there's this chain of events with Woodrow Wilson, like Federal Reserve. He was also very, very progressive. His platform was, he ripped off a lot from Theodore Roosevelt, and we can talk about kind of where TR was going towards the end of his life politically. It was a little bit strange, I'm not going to lie. But I think that the biggest indictment of Woodrow Wilson was he's like our Biden in a way. He literally had a stroke, and his wife ran the White House. He was mentally incapacitated for the last part of his term. There's a whole thing there. It's insane. It is actually insane. But he won because Theodore Roosevelt split the vote. Now technically TR got more votes than Taft, who was a Republican candidate. Which my point is, why didn't the party pick him again? That we're just rehashing a century-old thing at this point. But we chose Bull Moose because, not really necessarily because of the 1912 Progressive Party positions, but because of who we thought TR was as a person. Like the Bull Moose figure, the strenuous life, this very dynamic person. He was the one that coined the phrase bully pulpit. He was the one that coined the phrase lunatic fringe, if you're familiar with that. His impact on our language and the impact on the media, it's just mind-boggling for the time period. And we saw a lot of that in President Trump too. So we wanted to reflect this Bull Moose spirit of, taking life by the horns and just forcing these changes and being proactive in matters of governance and trying to turn things around. So that's where we got the name from. We started supporting candidates, talking to candidates and members of Congress that we thought shared maybe not 100% of the policy issues that we stood for, but that spirit. We thought we could talk to them and hopefully nudge things along, which I do think turned out to be true in a few respects. But yeah, it's really that vigorous spirit. There aren't a whole lot of people like that, especially in American politics, and that's what we wanted.
Yeah, no, I mean, definitely true. I'm somewhat familiar with his life. I know about the, almost dying in the Amazon. I know about the being shot and continuing to speak. I've dug a little bit into him. He seems totally awesome. Had a weird voice, right? Had a weird high voice, I think. And yeah, the Rough Riders. Mm-hmm. I want to say he had a quote that I can't seem to find, but somebody told me once that about the Anglo man needing war and blood in order to continue forward. And that's like why he started the Rough Riders and like invaded Cuba or whatever for like no reason. Which I totally agree with. I think without war, man is a really sad, pathetic creature. And I think people used to think that, but what?
No, I think that quote is real. I can't remember which place it comes from, but if you look at his old speeches, he talks about the Anglos a lot. It's like one of those early 20th century like progressive. I mean, it's like race science, like they're very much like part of the like in vogue at the time. So they talk about Anglos and like the other races of Europe a ton. It's like in almost every single speech that he gives.
Yeah, yeah. Totally. Yeah. So, okay. So yeah, he's this kind of powerful figure. All right. So what is the platform of, so right. We're not, okay. Wait, what kind of weird political stuff was he doing in the end of his life? Teddy.
He was, part of it was very much like in favor of popular sovereignty. So they wanted the direct election of senators, which we have now. They wanted recall elections, like primaries and things like that, which are all pretty standard now. We wouldn't think of it as a radical change. But then he was also campaigning when he was running for president for the third time. He wanted the public to be able to overturn the court, like the judiciary, which is a really fascinating idea. I think most conservatives would be opposed to it now. I think it's probably the wrong thing, but it was a different time, right? The country was completely different then, and he had a lot of grievances about the courts intentionally slowing things down and like halting policies, and we see a lot of the same complaints today. So
it's fascinating. I didn't know that. That's a fascinating fact that he wanted a popular veto for the Supreme Court. Because I mean, well, the interesting thing is the other two branches do have a popular veto, right? So why does this one not have a popular veto? I will say I went to law school. I'm a lawyer by trade. I'm a member of the not by trade, by training, and I'm a member of the California Bar. So I read all those cases and everything. I would say that's an insane idea, though. Yes, I don't think I would support such a thing, but it's a very populist notion. I mean, that being said, when you got Ruth Bader Ginsburg up there fucking everything up, screwing everything up permanently, like, maybe that would be good. But yeah,
there were a lot of grievances about the courts, about the party elites at the time, and that's he was basically running on a wholesale, completely changing the political and legal system of the United States, which freaked a lot of people out. There are also some other things in the party platform that, I think the only thing that we don't have that was in the platform is a national healthcare system. But literally everything else, like the FDA and like workplace safety laws, like they basically made the modern day, even though the party technically lost, because it was an ideological victory for them over like the 10 years after his run and his death. They just like swept through both parties. But yeah, it was like, I think he might be like the first really modern president, because he was he started the White House press room. And I know we're like getting weirdly into the details of
this stuff is what is good. I like these details. It's cool.
He was the one that started the press corps, basically. He just kept the reporters around him the whole time. Before that, you didn't really talk to the press that much. He also he streamlined presidential campaigning, because it used to be when you were the presidential nominee, the party elites would pick you at convention, and then they would do all the fundraising and campaigning for you, and you would just chill at home, basically. Lincoln did some debates like here and there, I think, but Theodore Roosevelt, he was taking the train cross country, giving speeches at every stop. I mean, literally everything that he did in American politics was revolutionary at the time.
They call that a whistle stop tour.
That's right. That's right.
Cool. All right. So what's your platform?
So
Tell
we,
us how this translates into today. What is the platform of the bull moose stuff?
we basically have four main planks. We want fair markets. So, and for us, that's fair trade, both domestically and internationally. We want to be able to steward our lands in a responsible way, not locking them up for production, but not totally like ripping everything apart to build more suburban developments that are ugly, right? And we want to be able to be energy dominant, to have low prices, and basically improve the cost of living, affordability, and the American community writ large. These are pretty broad platform planks. What it breaks down to is we support rigorous antitrust enforcement. We support like more pro-family policies like child tax credit. We support bringing manufacturing back into the United States, and with some strange mix between conservation and development. That's probably the most nebulous.
Well, hold on. Those are not mutually exclusive.
I agree.
Actually, the word conservation is deeply misunderstood by our current people, because conservation actually means the like considered use of. It doesn't mean the not use of.
Right.
The people mix that. They don't understand. Like, yeah, the conservation means like using, but with information. Right. Whereas exactly. It's been now and today it means not touching.
That's the point we try to make. Like we're trying to say, it's important to preserve America's natural beauty, because why would we not appreciate it? I mean, we have it, but there's also real benefits. And if we are able to, not just bulldoze everything, but actively manage it, then that's better for everyone. You get the best of both worlds. And some people just don't get that. And
no, they don't. The entire there is no right-wing conservation at all, really, anymore, right? I mean, most people would think that that's an oxymoron, which it's totally not. I mean, the Sierra Club used to be pretty conservative. I mean, it used to be about it used to be, and then there was a whole rift in the Sierra Club where half the people got kicked out for being racist. Do you know this?
Yeah.
So it's like the Sierra Club used to be pretty understanding of hunting and use of lands. It was about conserving the land, cultivating it. Whereas there was, not long ago, in the 80s or something, maybe even later, there was a huge rift between people who were against immigration, sure enough, and pro-immigration, and of course all the anti-immigration people were called, oh, so you won't want it to only be for white people. And of course, like every other NGO, it got completely wokeified and is now about, being gay in the wilderness.
I think they're going bankrupt now too.
Well, can you go bankrupt as a NGO? Is that even possible?
You can. I think there's some settlement against them. They owe it a ton of money. It's more money than they have. Wow. So they're kind of screwed, I think, in the long run.
What's the settlement?
I would have to check. Because their whole thing is frivolous environmental lawsuits, and I think someone finally struck back at them, and they're going to go through it, which is, I think, better for everybody, because the Sierra Club is probably single-handedly one of the most destructive groups in America, because they'll just the funny way these environmental protection laws work right now is there's some loopholes that just allow them to sue with and the companies are they throw up their hands I don't want to build here then if you're just going to sue me every single time and not give me any break, because when they're writing these impact reports, these environmental impact reports, all these people have to do is say you missed something, and they take them to court, and then they have to write it, and then when they finish that, they'll be like, oh no, you actually missed this part too, and so on with literally no end date. And destructive. So we'll be better off if they quit.
Totally. I mean, all of that whole system got taken over by consultants and then like woke people, and it's horrible. Okay, so it seems like your platform, you're saying fair trade, conservation, higher. You said minimum wage or something.
Yeah, we want fair trade. We want like conservation and stewardship. We want to revitalize the American community, and we want more and cheaper energy. Is basically what it comes
more cheaper energy. And does that include nuclear?
Yes.
Okay, so pro-nuclear, and also you said bring back American manufacturing, obviously.
Yep.
So pro-tariffs?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. All right, so basically you're like the anti-neocon, anti-neoliberal American conservative, right?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, you know, it's the weirdest thing too, because we're one of the only groups here that is like that. Most of the ecosystem is still like very much in the old ways.
Yeah, just no anything, no rules at all. Wow. Okay. So but this does seem to be like doesn't it seem to be growing? I mean, this consciousness, it seems like all the discourse that I see on the right is people sort of talking themselves into having to stand up for stuff like tariffs, or having to stand up for stuff like economic protectionism at certain levels. So do you think that it's a growing trend?
I do. You know, there's with the tariffs, right? I mean, there's always going to be specific nitpicks on policy, like it. But I think fundamentally the number of conservatives that are in favor of using tariffs as a tool to achieve like a specific end goal is growing. Now they may not. There's some people that may not be comfortable with a flat tariff rate, but I think that they are at least more comfortable using tariffs in general, which I see as a positive development. That number is growing. There are more candidates running out there on the federal level that are pro-tariff. I guess the big question is, will they continue to be pro-tariff after 2028? I think that's an open question as to how many of the Republican conference in particular might kind of walk back or disengage from that part. But I do think that there's a growing component of members of Congress, for example, that do believe in this and are willing to actually work on new policy and not just revert back to the status quo.
So how does a group like yours bring about change?
That's a
very broad
question.
Good question.
I mean, there's like the typical tank stuff, right? That people produce white papers that nobody reads. They produce reports that nobody reads. We do a little bit of that. I would not to the frequency that some do. We do write a fair amount. Most of it is like in smaller, op-eds, like 600 to 1,000 words, more digestible for people to read. But we're largely in the influence game. Like a lot of what we do is, especially in growing our social media presence, it is a signal, right? It's if the Bull Moose Project is supporting this bill or this type of policy, and the Bull Moose Project, and that they're America First conservative, then it must be a pretty decent policy. Maybe not perfect, but pretty good. And what we're able to do with that is take our brand, take our message, and meet with people who are writing these, who are kind of engaged in the day-to-day of this legislation and this political process, and talk to them a little bit more specifically about what we like and don't like, but most importantly, lend our platform to what they're trying to do. So
that's called lobbying, right? What you just said, that's lobbying.
Yeah, we do a little bit of lobbying.
But what is lobbying?
So
what does that actually mean? Is it called lobbying because you're waiting in the lobby? Is that why it's called that?
I actually don't know.
I don't know either. I don't. It's not you. I have no idea. I assume that it's like you're waiting in the lobby, waiting to like talk to someone.
That wouldn't surprise me. There's a really technical definition of lobbying. It's like if you are meeting with staff or members of Congress and you are explicitly saying, like, vote for this bill, don't vote for this bill, or change this specific section in this bill, and you do it for more than 20% of your work or like your time, that is lobbying. Then you have to register as a lobbyist. We don't lobby more than that period that would require us to register for anything.
But what does it actually do? What for more than 20% of your time?
Like, for example, like literally having a meeting with staff, like coffee, office meetings, virtual meetings. If you are sending emails, that counts.
Staff, but like what's staff?
People who work in a congressional office.
Got it. Okay.
Like people who work for the member directly, or like someone who works directly for a committee or something like that.
I see.
Yeah.
So why do people listen to lobbyists at all, though? Like, if you are a member of so-and-so's office on the Hill and you get an email from blah, blah, lobbyist, why do you even listen at all?
So I'll say for us first, because we're not, again, technically, like we don't lobby in that sense, but what helps us is that we are an advocacy group. Like to these staff, to these members, we represent an important constituency in the conservative movement. That's why they listen to us. For a company lobbyist, or like a sectoral, like a trade association lobbyist that has a bunch of companies involved in it, all that stuff. They listen for a couple different reasons. One, it may be an important sector of the economy or an important business and some members' district. Like if you, for example, like TSMC, they're building a fab in Arizona. So the person who represents that area is, probably like they want that facility there most likely. And so they'll, want to make sure that they're happy and that nothing is going to harm that. Sometimes, like there are some people that, you as a member of Congress, you spend a lot of your time raising money, and these people cut checks. And that's how they kind of get their foot in the door. So that certainly plays a role in it. I like to think in the most positive world, people listen to lobbyists because those lobbyists represent important industries or companies, or people like lobby for Catholic groups, right? So if you're a Catholic or you care about that, then you'll want to listen to those people. That's the positive side. Now the downside is you may have people in there that listen to lobbyists because they want their money and will just do whatever. And I would also say, kind of an aside, some of it is technical expertise. Like if you're working in a really technical or niche industry,
you want the information.
You'll want information, but the staff will also want to figure out, like, how does this actually affect you as a company?
Mm-hmm.
Like if we write this regulation in this way versus this way, what is the difference?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a little bit of that as well, because there are many excellent technical people on the Hill, not nearly enough though, and they're not paid nearly enough. So they end up relying a lot on outside, like private sector people for guidance and support.
Right. Yeah, but it's all interest. The information is tainted because it's manufactured for a reason, or it's there for a reason. Okay, so so again, are you seeing in DC more and more people? I'm assuming that how did you arrive in your role?
Well, I like to say, and this is kind of, I'm half joking, but the Bull Moose Project was a fluke. Originally we started it in right after the 2020 election. So it was spring of 2021. People were demoralized. We didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't know. I mean, at this point, we didn't even know what was going to happen with Trump, if he was going to run again, if he was, if it was over for him or anything like that. And so it was myself, and I think we had, at least a dozen other, like younger, like populist conservative guys, and we were all talking to each other, and we were trying to figure out, what can we do? Like, I was in college at the time, right? Like, I'm a younger guy, and we were trying to figure out what can we do to help push this along. What can we do to help promote this movement that we believe in, that we think should be the future, and avoid going back to what we believe was a losing path. And we ended up, again, creating an organization like with C4 status is not too difficult. So we threw something together. We had an amazing name, and we literally just started posting on Twitter.
Really?
That's where we started.
And that's what the existing account of Bull Moose Project is, that same
Yes.
thing.
Yep.
Nice.
So we posted ourselves into where we are now. That's kind of like the flippant answer, right? But we were able to grow our platform, especially focusing like then on the big tech censorship, like going after big tech companies. We were able to build such a interesting following that for some reason included a lot of Hill staff. And then we were able to start talking with those Hill staff, and then start talking with the members, and they would come to us and say, hey, what do you think of this bill? We're like, hey, can you help us promote this? We think you would really like it. And so we entered this period of, we just built our reputation brick by brick. And along the way, we started being able to actually be advocates for our followers, for people who believed in this, and find people who wanted to support our mission as well. And so we were able to grow. Now I think we have 6 people on our team, some varying status, who are committed to the mission and helping us do all of this stuff.
So that's a great origin story. That group of guys that you're talking about in college, so yeah, you are very young. What were you reacting to? I'm trying to understand, like, were you all sitting around in 2020? I mean, I was also very demoralized then. Were you guys all kind of sitting around thinking, man, were you blaming the Republicans? Were you basically saying, like, man, this platform sucks? Like,
yeah.
Why did you coalesce around this? What was like the mistake that had happened in 2020 that you were reacting to, I guess?
One of the central themes was really on, like, it was big tech focus, right? Because we know this, they for a long time silenced conservatives, and not just personal accounts. They went after Trump, they went after elected officials, they went as far down as like Republican digital fundraising. Like, we know that Google de-preferenced Republican fundraising, so it would go to spam. Meanwhile,
is that true?
Yes. The Democratic digital fundraising emails were fine. Like, some of them were spam, of course, but like there was a higher like ratio of Republican emails going to spam than the Democrat ones. And we came to the conclusion basically that one of the reasons that they were able to, and this was before Elon bought Twitter and made it X, one of the reasons that they were able to do this was literally because they were monopolies. Like, they were the access point. They could do whatever they wanted, and we weren't able to do anything about it. And so antitrust really was like that central theme of, we're just trying to get Republicans to admit to themselves, like, we actually do need proactive government action in some areas. Otherwise, we will get screwed over. It started with the censorship and all of this. But I think it applies, broadly speaking, throughout the economy, and really as a governing philosophy for Republicans. That's what we were reacting to. We didn't think Republicans were actually willing to govern effectively.
To regulate the tech companies, more or less.
Right,
So
right.
that was basically it. Yeah, well, and then isn't it amazing to think only 4 years later, who was it at inauguration? It was like five of those tech companies. It was Google there. Was Sergey and Larry, were they at that thing? If so, shame on them. Ridiculous. And Zuckerberg totally flipped.
Zuckerberg, Bezos,
Yeah.
Jensen Huang from NVIDIA.
Right. And then, of course, Musk. But I wonder, was Larry and Sergey, did they at least have the decency to not go? I feel like they maybe were there. But anyway, so wow. So antitrust. You have a cool quote on the you're doing a conference about antitrust. I'm a big believer in antitrust. I really like, and it's kind of a genius idea. It's kind of a weird idea, right? It's very anti-competitive, quite obviously. I mean, in a way, it's ultimately anti-competitive and ultimately competitive because you're guaranteeing competition, right? So it's this very unique sort of law, and it's very American. It's like a very American law that I deeply believe in, and I think it's really, really healthy. But in his day, Teddy was sort of reacting to this thing he called trust that I don't think that exists anymore. So what was a trust? We're not talking about like a trust like that, like a person has, right? So
No.
what was a trust in his era, and what was antitrust law?
I mean, the trusts were like these. It was the oil and rail company, or sorry, it's steel and rail, not oil. The steel and rail company, like these massive companies, and like the Mellons and the the quote unquote robber barons who ran them, who created them, and were able to relentlessly, they broke strikes. They didn't pay a whole lot in wages. They decimated their competition. These are the people that they were the ones that created the hostile takeover of companies, and so they were just huge. That's what a trust was, just a massive monopoly in the steel or the rail industry, and it was a problem, particularly rail actually, for the farmers. And in American history, farmers, agriculture, these were kind of the center of a lot of the populist movements. Going back to, I mean, it was like William Jennings Bryan in the late 19th century. Like they had Andrew Jackson too was like vaulted into power by these farmers, by like more agriculture, the yeoman farmers. And if you had a monopoly in rail, they were saying, they would get screwed out of a bunch of money because they had nobody else to take their products to port. And Theodore Roosevelt, he did not want people to be taken advantage of, right? And you see this theme in his politics across the board. And I don't know if you've read the Edmund Morris trilogy, the biography of TR. I would heavily recommend it. It's fascinating. But throughout his life, you see like genuine care for the common man. It's kind of like a paternal instinct, honestly, because he wanted to take care of people. He wanted to give people a baseline from which to live and not live in like squalor and filth. But most of his philosophy was really pushing people to be successful. And the only way you can have your society be successful is if you compete against each other, right? If you have an incentive to do the best work you can and get paid for it. And these trusts were just destroying the opportunity of the workers and eliminating competition. And this was not an unknown problem. The Sherman Antitrust Act came before TR, and he was really one of like the first person to start using it in a very aggressive way against these companies. And also Taft too, following him, was a very, very strong antitrust enforcer as well. So it fits in with the theme of the early 20th century of just Americans were tired of being taken advantage of by people out of their reach, right? Whether it's like these huge companies, whether it's the political elite picking their leaders. It was like America was restless. It was growing. There were so many, like new wave immigrants. Like it was just this bustling country, growing in industrial capacity and opportunity, but still lacking like a lot of the valves for people to feel like they were actively participating and not being shut out. So I think that's really where it came from.
So the trust in antitrust is not like an anti-competitive relationship between two large corporations. It's just one it's one large corporation that has what, too much percentage control over a given industry, much like Google. Yeah, how do you define what? Because in the meaning of the word, when I hear trust, I figured that meant like a relationship between one or more of these things that was like price fixing, right?
Yeah, but that's like I think the term is cartel when companies are scheming with each other to fix prices. That is very much part of this. And then there's also there's like monopoly, which is when one company dominates a majority of the market, and the anti-competitive behavior is not just that monopoly exists, but that they like take advantage of it for their own profit margin, and they're able to raise prices and shut out competitors. That's the anti-competitive part. It's not just the monopoly existing; it's the fact that they're actively fixing prices, or they're actively trying to shut out the competition by driving them out of business. Because these are the companies that can afford to like with rail, right? They could afford to raise rates, and there wouldn't really be any competition that farmers could go to have their product shipped out. Or like steel, they were able to raise or lower the price of steel to put competitors out of business. And of course, they bought up a whole lot of other companies as well. So there's a range of anti-competitive behavior that they were really attacking at the time. And I mean, it was such a huge problem. There's the Sherman Act and the Clayton Act. I believe Clayton came after, that expanded the powers of the government and the regulatory authority over private industry. It's when we see a lot of the same things happen today. I mean, the Gail Slater, the Assistant Attorney General for Antitrust at the Department of Justice. I don't know if her stuff has ever popped up on your feed, but they're constantly announcing like charges and settlements against companies, like people who are trying to price fix actively. There was this whole thing with a company called RealPage, where they basically allowed landlords to collude on pricing, because it was live pricing for the area on what they were charging for rent. So that came into a settlement. It's not just
wow. Well, hold on. Yeah. What was that? I never heard that. What was that?
Yeah. So RealPage was like the software where you could see like the average like rent in any given geographic area, and there were a lot of landlords using it, especially some of these huge companies.
Yeah.
And so they were sued for being anti-competitive, for basically the government sued them because they believe they were colluding or using it to collude on pricing rent to get the highest possible rent for all the companies in the area. So they had a settlement on that. So it's not just rail now. It's not old steel now. It's really areas like the digital economy. And
so does that still exist, that landlord thing?
Yeah. So the settlement, they came to an arrangement. So that's it's not supposed to happen anymore. We'll see if they actually abide by the terms of the agreement.
Wow.
But that was one that they got. Yeah. And there's a ton of other antitrust stuff going on right now, especially with Google. There was a Meta trial recently. There's some like potential anti-competitive stuff with Apple that we've been working on recently as well. So it's just it's constant. A lot of it is tech specific or tech focused, but it's not the only sector of the economy. It's literally across the board. People try to collude on pricing and rip people off all the time.
So what happened with the Google antitrust case?
Yeah, so there were two. There's the Google search, I believe it's Google search, and then their advertising. So those are two separate cases. In both cases, the government or the judge found that Google, well, in the first case, the ad tech one, the judge found that Google was an illegal monopoly, that the way that their advertising platform was set up, they were able to charge higher, like extract rents, higher rents from companies that participated and shut out competitors. The Google search also was in favor. It was, we wrote about it. It was an okay ruling. We didn't think that the judge went far enough on search, but they basically found that, you know, Google, the way the Google search indexing works and with AI and all this stuff, they were a monopoly for browsing. That one wasn't the best, and the DOJ is appealing it right now, along with a handful of states. So that is litigation that is ongoing, but they've been like, Google's been fighting tooth and nail against this stuff for years. But it's multiple aspects of their business, like the digital advertising, the search. Apple has been like also doing similar stuff, buying out competitors and like copying their products and all that stuff. Not really great behavior from these companies. Some of them seem to be learning, but that's why we've been pushing for stronger antitrust enforcement, because you really just have to beat people over the head. Like, no, you actually can't. You actually cannot take advantage of your users
Size.
or your clients.
Yeah. So it has to be an anti-competitive behavior, right? I mean, that's sort of the definition.
Yeah, and it's like, you know, you have to prove harms, right? So for the ad tech case, they brought onto the stand one of the CEOs of like a rival ad company, and he was explaining all the intricacies of how they were shut out by Google, and they weren't really allowed to compete on the same scale. And then it's, you know, up to the lawyers and the judge to figure out, you know, if he's exaggerating or, you know, if it was actually anti-competitive or not. But like, that whole process is just proving like, one, you're an illegal monopoly and you're doing XYZ behavior that is anti-competitive.
Yeah. Okay. So you have a conference coming up that's going to be about this. So what's the deal with that? What's going to happen there?
So it's interesting. Affordability is this huge topic.
Yeah,
right
this
now.
is the new thing, affordability. This is what everybody's talking about.
And
affordability and abundance. These are the new words of the day.
I would argue that antitrust is a big part of affordability, right?
Yeah.
And you know, what we want to do with this conference, it's half a day. So we're going to try and pack in as much information as we can, but we want to give conservatives the opportunity to talk about some of the big wins that the federal government has had on antitrust over the last year and how it actually benefits Americans. And then it's kind of a third thing, you know, where are we going to go from here? Like what are the next set of issues or industries that we need to be keeping an eye on? So we will be announcing our speakers soon. We have some very good ones that are like very much in favor of this. I can't reveal too much about that quite yet, but for topics, you know, like we're going to talk, for example, about AI, right? How do there's only a handful of big frontier labs. It's OpenAI. There's Google, there's Meta. I guess my perception is that Meta doesn't really have the best one, in Anthropic, and then Microsoft, I think, as well. And but all the other AI companies are downstream of those. So how do you create an environment where you have this thriving, quote unquote, little tech like startup ecosystem, who are basically operating at the behest of all of these frontier labs who can change the products at will, and charge whatever they want and like do this. And it could ruin businesses overnight. Like we've seen with every update to Anthropic or ChatGPT or Claude or ChatGPT, they like kill several dozen startups, right? Because they just add more capabilities, and people are just building on top of that. So that's one discussion that we want to have. We're also going to talk a little bit about the international perspective. There's a lot of things that the European Union does that people in the U.S. don't like. There are a lot of things that Korea and Japan do that that conservatives actually do like. So we want to talk about the distinctions there, and how other countries are enforcing antitrust laws versus here at home, and what, if any, lessons there are from that. It'll be an interesting time. I think we've got. I mean, most of the antitrust crowd are pro antitrust crowd are progressive. They're leftists or Democrats, right. And they're like any issue, or like some issues at least. There is a fair amount of common ground on like the diagnosis of the problem. It's the policy specifics where you end up differing the most, right? And so we want to devote some time to have conservatives come and talk about what they think, because being in favor of antitrust enforcement is not a typical Republican Party position, or at least it wasn't until Donald Trump. And we need to start fleshing that out now, or if we get back to this, if we lose the affordability argument, we're kind of done for. I mean, you can't say that this economy is the best ever when people feel like they're still struggling, and when we have a trifecta, and we're still trying to see these results. And part of it is a PR issue, getting those wins out there. But these antitrust cases are high profile. They have huge ramifications, and people should know about that, and they should be supporting these cases.
So, but don't people always say that? Don't people always say that they're struggling? Why? There's got to be a more expansive reason why people are talking about this now, right? Why are people suddenly talking about affordability? Because the economy has actually been great for a long time, right? Like a really long time. So why does it seem? It's also affordability is an interesting way to put it. Like, why is affordability and abundance, why are these the things that are on people's lips right now?
Well, because
nobody ever has enough money ever, right? I mean, through all has the American populace ever been like, yeah, I've got plenty of money? Like, no, nobody has ever said that. So, but like right now, those things are coming up for a reason.
Yeah, I think, and if this isn't what you were thinking, I'm actually curious what you have to say. But I do think that this comes down to a like a weird generational gap, and I've been thinking about this for a little bit. I think on the part of the boomers, like the elderly, seniors, a lot of their focus on like affordability, like being able to live, is because they're on fixed incomes,
right?
And a lot of that's derived from the property tax argument, which is why we're seeing such a huge surge in the whole abolish your property taxes argument, which I do not support as fully as some people. With nuances, but like there are people that are on fixed incomes. They make up a huge portion of the population, a huge portion of the voter base of the Republican Party in particular, and they don't want anything to change, right? And then I do think on the part of the young people, it's like what the median age for buying a home, first time home buyers in the 40s now. People feel a little bit locked out from stuff that was sold to them as a prerequisite, right, for being successful. And I think that's what's driving it. I mean, yeah, the price of gas is going down. The economy is better. Tariffs are working in some ways to bring manufacturing jobs back and level the playing field, but we're in a transition period right now. And I think what people want is to feel like, honestly, what we were talking about before, that Republicans, that the government, that President Trump is doing something to make their lives better.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, that's what antitrust enforcement is. It's like proactive, positive action on the part of the government to make sure that people aren't ripped off. People don't want to be ripped off. The cost of living, I mean, the administration is doing so many things that would help the cost of living. Like the deportations are a huge part of that, because we have, I think the last,
rent, LA rent is like way down.
Yeah,
it's like the first time it's like ever been down for like a really long time, and it's obviously because of this.
I got into an argument with the former FTC commissioner, a Democrat, on Twitter, who was criticizing the deportations from Trump and like talking about how, I think it was like how, they're not actually doing anything to improve, this issue for Americans. And I basically was saying, you cannot divorce immigration policy from like cost of living, because we have,
of course not,
30 million people who aren't supposed to be here, who have to live somewhere.
Yeah. Just imagine being a landlord and you have either open borders or closed borders. Which do you want as a landlord? Of course you want open borders, because then you have unlimited number of customers. It's supply and demand. I mean, that should be obvious to everybody. Of course it's not at all. But I think it's coming from like the consultant era, like the era of shrinkflation, like we have these really disgusting financial predators who basically run things now, and they have to keep growing forever, right? So they have to endlessly grow. Also, the reason why nothing ever crashes is because this is a thesis nobody else really seems to have said besides a few people. But, now index funds own, passive investors own like all of the stock now. It's like half of the stock. You look at any stock, it's going to be 15% Vanguard, 10% BlackRock, So there's so few parties in the economy, right, that it's not going to crash. It can't really crash because it can't go down fast enough. And these institutional investors can't really sell anyway, even if they wanted to. I don't think they can get out easily. That's why they're a passive investor. So the economy, the stock market is like fake. It's not going to work the right way. And so therefore there's no ability to correct. So everything has to just go up forever. And it goes up and up and up. And the only way to make any money is to just shrinkflate. So to slowly pare back, own more stuff, but pare back the quality endlessly, right? And simultaneously jack up prices for things that are super inelastic. I forget if it's elastic or inelastic. I guess are super elastic, like healthcare and education, where it's not real. So we live in a completely fake economy. We live in basically a credit card debt, social credit score system, more or less. Money, it feels to me, is not real at all. And hasn't been for a long time. And it's kind of just now, if you have good credit, you just kind of do whatever you want. And then if you don't, you're completely fucked, more or less. That's how it seems to me. I mean, I'm a lot older than you, and it seems like the prices of things have no relationship to reality at all. It's 10 years ago, this the burger and fries test. 10 years ago, you could easily find a burger and fries for under $10. Now it's $25. You go to Five Guys, it's $25 for a burger and fries. And it seems like that happened in the past 2 years. And it doesn't seem like anybody really realizes that this has happened. Even if you look at the straight reported numbers, people still have this idea in their head that $100,000 is like a good salary, right? We all think that. That's what I thought when I was 7 years old. I mean, I'm 40. That's what I thought in 96. I thought people who make $100,000 make good money. Whereas $100,000 then was like $400,000 now. I mean, it's like, so people's conception of the amount of money they have is totally warped. And that's why nobody can afford a house, because basically we've been robbed. We've been completely robbed and shrinkflated out of our possessions. We've been dispossessed by these giant international global corporations who use their scale to basically crush us, to trick us. I mean, talk about anti-competitive behavior. I had a super viral article a couple of years ago called "There's Going to Be a War in Montana." And it was all about how Bozeman, or these Montana vacation towns, the whole charm used to be that they were local. You could go hang out with the cowboys down at the bar, eat like a buffalo burger, and it was still kind of like rural. Like it actually had that feel to it. Mm-hmm. Now, even if you have a bar or a gastropub in Bozeman called like Local Montana Smoke and Fire, it's going to be a hedge fund that there's like a location there's 50 locations and they just hide it. They hide it. So you think you're going to get a local Montana thing, but actually you're getting have you seen these beers called Ballast Point? There's a good example.
No, I'm not familiar.
So Ballast Point is this beer, and there's one in Long Beach. And you go to the Ballast Point and you think, I'm at a brewery that's like a Long Beach brewery. That's what you think. But there's like a Ballast Point brewery in every key location in every city in the Southwest. Or there's one in Philly or something. So it's this is the new way of corporations are anti-competitive. It's they just pretend. We're basically just a monoculture now, which is actually the least competitive thing you could possibly imagine, and which is a horrific outcome, I would say.
The monoculture part is interesting. I was actually going to say, I think this is just why everything is so ugly and soulless, right? It's
these buildings,
the same mindset, the buildings, the cost cuttings. These new build homes are disgusting. They're just. They're nice in the amenities, right? But they don't really look that great, and they're usually not built well either. But I mean,
crappy,
the private equity thing is just, it's not great. I mean, we did a report last month about private equity and cancer care centers, and they roll up all they basically build these regional behemoths, right? And that are supposedly run by the local doctors, but they're really not.
Right.
They're run by the private equity firm. And we had some crazy stuff in there, like the mortality rate in the PE firms versus the actual local firm was almost double.
Oh my God, that is horrifying.
And they'll because their incentive is to roll it up, build a bigger company, and then sell it for a profit. They end up just buying a bunch, and then if they can't get more patients in, they close the location in rural areas. So you actually end up with less care in specific areas if they can't get enough people to show up. It's parasitic, right? The way these companies behave.
It's true evil, and it's just and they know the pressure points too. It's they know how to go directly to this pressure point where they don't think anybody's looking. And it's some thing that you couldn't believe anybody would ever take advantage of this thing. So that's exactly where they go. They go to the place that nobody could be that disgusting. And then it's like, oh, yeah. Oh, yep. They actually are running the ambulance company and like cutting costs of the ambulance, to save 25 cents on something. So yeah, no, and if you're fighting against that, I mean, I think you're going to have a lot of success, because I think more and more that's what needs to be regulated is these international financial, just predatory, index, not the index funds, less so because that's just stock ownership, but yeah, the private equity groups and the people who use all these tricks. It's really gross.
Yeah, and I think to your point about what people are doing, we are starting to see actual action from states in a bipartisan way, but even Republican states where people usually complain they don't do anything. It's like in the healthcare space, particularly, there's a handful of states that are like, one, the state AGs sue these companies, and then they're also trying to pass these laws. So like, instead of having this fake setup where the PE firm runs the company and the physician is just told what to do, they actually are supposed to keep the physicians in charge and not make medical decisions based on their financials or like what's best financially.
Yeah.
So I people are starting to push back. I think like because of I think a lot of people recognize just how crazy the prices are. A lot of people that are older than me, I suppose, but I do think that people my age recognize that something is wrong. Even in media, right? Like, because media is the great informer of culture and like the populace. And I remember watching films from the 90s, right? And they walk right up to the terminal in the airport. It's like, well, I didn't know you could do that. Or they get a burger for like $6.99. Like
$6.99 used to be $3.99.
Yeah, three. See, like
nothing. It used to be even lower. A burger for more than $5 was the cliff. That was
And I watched that stuff. And I'm like, wow, like, what do we leave behind? The clothes look better. The cars looked better. The homes looked better. Everything.
The cars are the worst. The cars are just these disgusting plastic bubbles. They all look exactly the same. They're such crap. Even Toyota was hanging on, but even I think Toyota now has finally succumbed to the cost cutting stuff. And it's true. It's like, who is making stuff that's actually substantial and cool? I mean, this is why Erewhon is such a sensation in LA, because it's like, it's not even really that good, but they charge astronomical prices, but it's because they just did like the slightest effort to not have things be completely shitty. Like they were just like, all right, well, it's really not even that impressive. It's not like they're like this. You should see people walking into there. They think it's like Valhalla. It's female Valhalla. That's what people say. But it's like there seems to be such a huge market for not being a shitty globalist cost-cutting procedure. It's amazing to me that any of these places still have customers.
I think what we're going to see across the board, like in politics and in cultures, I mean, hopefully a return to some kind of authenticity, right? Like people want effort. Like this is the era of Sean Duffy saying dress up when you go to the airport, and people make fun of him for it now, but I think it is going to happen because people are tired of just doing the bare minimum and getting the bare minimum. They want adventure, right? That's why the Instagram like travel stuff is so crazy. Even if somebody never goes, like they never take a trip outside the country, it's like I just want to like go somewhere cool. I want to feel important, and people are going to return to that. Like they want an authentic experience of some kind, and like the puppet masters are running these rolled up companies that don't really do anything like important or special. They're going to find out sooner or later that that's what people want.
Well, it's also just like from a governmental standpoint, which is something you're working on. It's almost a new, like in Teddy's day, the risk was right, truly anti-competitive behavior. It was like the risk was that we would not have the capitalist options that we have come to like. That's our system. Our system is capitalism. Like, and if you appeal to capitalism, I feel like Americans naturally respond because they're like, yeah, no, we need to have That's why anti-competitive is such a great phrase. I don't know if he coined that. But now it's like a variation on it. These companies now, it's not just like pure bold. It's not like BlackRock is out there putting a BlackRock sign on its houses and being like, this is ours now. Like that's what it used to be. It used to be Standard Oil. You don't mess with us. We're here. Like, this is our stuff. Like, you can't. Whereas now it's like they hide. They're kind of like hidden. And the thing that we risk now is not necessarily like not having competitors for like price reasons, but literally like, yeah, monoculture. Like we are risking losing what makes culture beautiful, which is the difference between stuff, kind of.
No, I agree. And to like be a liberal for a second, like that's that's like the real like benefit of diversity, right? It's not like America used to be. I mean, even the regional accents are disappearing.
Yeah,
and that's it's a huge change. Like things are much different now than they were a few years ago, and like at the same time, or by a few years ago, I mean decades ago. But at the same time, still like very much more and more the same. Have you ever seen that chart of the like those food companies, like the food and beverage companies, all the brands? There's like one company, they own like all the different like food and soda like chip brands.
Yeah,
it makes you think that they're competing with each other, but it's all the same company. There's an illusion of choice.
Yeah,
that's basically what we have in so many different areas.
Right. And it's funny because the globalists, like they are like, if you look at their imagery is always like a rainbow, whether the gay rainbow or just like even beyond that, it'll be like colors, like different color circles, because they want to believe that they're the ones that are preserving the diversity of the beauty of humanity. But in fact, that neoliberal perspective is the biggest destroyer of difference. It's like, yeah, let's have everybody look superficially different, but they all talk like a rich white woman. That's basically the goal. It's like, you can be black, you can be gay, you can be fat, you can be Moroccan, but as long as you talk like a rich white person and have the woman and have the same values, then it's fine. And it's like, okay, well, that's not difference. It's like, and it's the same thing with the ingredients of these companies, right? It's like seed oils is a great example. It's just everything is seed oils. It's just like a different construction of it, which is really, it's terrifying to think about. And yeah, we need Teddy to come back to save us.
You do.
All right. So quick last sort of line of questioning here. One of the things that you do is select candidates. It seems like that's one of the things that you guys spend a lot of time doing. How do you do that? How do you decide who to endorse? So
when we're looking at a race, I mean, we look at a couple things. Number one is fundraising. I've had candidates reach out to me who are running, and I don't even mean this as an insult to them, because I respect the decision to run, but they don't raise enough money to be competitive. And if you don't do that, we will probably, I mean, there are like one or two cases where we really, really support someone where we might do that. But if you're not a serious candidate, like from the financial point, then we probably won't endorse you. If that part is fine, you check those boxes, we do a couple things. I mean, we have a questionnaire. So the candidates fill out a questionnaire. on policy issues, policy questions that we have that we want like their answer on, and then we do an interview. So I speak with the candidates personally. I ask them about their opponents, their financials, the policy questions, um, their team, how they're campaigning. Get as nitty gritty as we can to make sure that one, we align with somebody, and two, that they're actually going to put the work in that they need to win an election. Um, so this cycle, we're working on a couple of candidates right now, but we've endorsed Jace Yarbrough about in Texas 32. He was just endorsed by Trump, which is fantastic. And then we have a candidate in Nevada who's running, who he was a composer for Halo, which is pretty cool. We'll talk
Really?
about
That's
that.
cool.
So he's great too. So we have this process where we get in touch with the candidate or the campaign. We send a questionnaire. We look at their money and we talk to them and see if they actually believe what they believe. There's some people that lie, but you can usually pick it up pretty well once you do it a couple times. Like it took me a little bit to learn because people do it, and but now
They lie to get you to endorse them.
Yeah,
really.
Because people
short
want to be able to tell others that they have support. Like, hey, these people are supporting me. They're based in DC. They're so important. Even though we don't spend money in elections. Like we endorse them. We support them. We try to help them however we can. That is not expressly political outside of the endorsement. But other than that, we don't do that. So it's when someone gets in touch with us, it's they really believe in the mission, or at least they say they do.
Interesting. Oh, so wait, that comes from them. You don't get in touch with them; they come to you.
Most of the time, they come to us.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Because they have some campaign manager who's like going down the list of orgs and like this is what they do. Is that how that works?
For some, I assume. I mean, we have a lot of mutual connections in the campaign world, so people are on the lookout and say, "Hey, I think you'd really like this guy.
This is a good candidate."
Yeah.
You know what your guys' position, and I like am one of your guys in pretty much every way. I don't think I would really disagree with you platform-wise on anything. I can't think of anything. So I'm right there with you. Yeah, I mean, I come from the left, so I'm like pretty lefty still on economic shit for sure. I mean, I grew up deep. I grew up in the theater kid, academia. My parents are in that world, so I was really very deeply left growing up, and so I'm still like pretty like lefty on a lot of economic stuff. So I'm like pretty much right where you are. I guess, did you read the most recent James Pogue article about Marie Gluesenkamp-Perez?
I saw it, but I hadn't read it yet.
Yeah. So she's reminding me a little bit of like a mirror of you guys on the left. She's kind of like a step. I'm not gonna say towards the center, but like she's like a Dem who's like really anti-financialization. Her whole thing is hating financialization. She's all into right to repair. Have you gotten into the right to? Do you know what that is?
Yep.
So what would you say about like right to repair?
We've been supportive of right to repair. And it's funny because we endorsed Joe Kent when they were running against each other. But like I do think that the goal of government is not, I wouldn't say it's to be hands off as a matter of fact, but it's to give people the ultimate amount of freedom and choice. And I think it just so happens that that freedom and choice means different things, I guess, to different parts of the conservative movement. I don't think we live in a free market. That's why we say fair. Like the way that our economy works is not free. And so what we want to do is unleash the shackles of the American man, right? And let them let them fix what they want. Let them buy guns. Like let them build their own business and not get crushed by a multinational corporation.
Right. You can't have it's impossible. You cannot compete with the world and have a nation. It's not, I mean, it's not, I mean, on a pure, again, like I think the biggest problem is it's really nobody's fault. It's just, there's no distance anymore, right? I mean, it used to be, all of this used to be nicely controlled by geography. It used to be like you can't penetrate that far from your headquarters. You were kind of stuck where you were. Whereas now there's no space between anything. So, and any company anywhere pretty much can get its claws deep into almost anywhere in the world. And so if you don't have any kind of protections against that, you don't really have a nation anymore, which is what we're facing right now.
Like tariffs in particular, Americans, politicians, they used to instinctively understand this, that even if, you agree with what the economists say, like why am I forgetting the term right now, but comparative advantage, right? Like some countries will do this thing much better and you can do this thing better. So just trade with each other. Okay. But what if that country is your enemy? Like, what if they want to go to war with you? You suddenly don't have that anymore. So it's important to have some of your own industry and at least some protections, because part of it is also skill, right? And we, especially in semiconductors, like we lost that. Right. American companies don't know how to make chips. We have to bring the Taiwanese here to teach us, even though we're the ones that invented it in the first place. Those things are important. So people used to understand this, and we're in the long fight to get it back, but I think we're making a lot of progress overall.
For sure, man. Well, God bless you. You're doing God's work. I think this is very cool, and thank you so much for your time. Where can people get involved? How do people? I'm following you right now. How do you how do you become involved with the Bull Moose Project?
I would visit our website, bullmooseproject.org, or our X at bullmoose, PROJ, Proj, and sign up for our list. We're constantly sending out emails about new stuff that we're doing, events that we're hosting. So if you're in the DC area, that'll be the easiest for you, but we're hoping to expand across the country sometime soon. So send us an email, and I'm happy to talk with anybody who wants to get.
Is there like a sign up? I'm looking at your thing. Is there a sign up?
Go to bullmooseproject.org/join.
Join. Okay, you got. There's no like clear button. Oh, here it is. I see it. Oh yeah, this you got. Who did your brand, by the way?
We had Beck and Stone.
How did I know? They always do this. Well, they give everybody. This is why. Speaking of monoculture, no. So you have an error here in your sign up thing in the middle of your site. No offense. I'm not hating on you. I'm hating on them. They're a direct competitor of ours, so I get to talk shit about them. Anyway, all right, dude. Thank you so much. Really great to meet you, and let's talk soon.
That sounds great. Thank you for having me on.
Peace.